Uh-oh.
We probably need to start from the top, Mr. Examiner.
Okay. Okay, we will convene the agenda then for September 2nd and consider the matter that's scheduled for 1:30, and that is request for approval of the Canterwood Commercial Center. The applicant is Sweet Hill LLC, and the request application numbers are PLSPR 07-004, PLCUP 13-002, PLDRB -07-0013. And the request is basically for a conditional use permit, site plan approval, and the design review approval to allow construction of 4 commercial buildings totaling 28,278 square feet, along with a parking garage on a vacant parcel located at 10700 Canterwood Boulevard, Gig Harbor. For the record, my name is Steve Casso. I'm the City of Gig Harbor Hearings Examiner. I am an attorney in the private practice of law with the firm of McCarthy and Casso that is located at 902 South 10th in Tacoma. So if anyone knows of a reason why I should not hear the matter, please indicate. Otherwise, we will go ahead and proceed. The way we'll proceed then is we'll first hear a presentation of the city staff report by Kimberly Mahoney. Following that, we will see if the city wishes to present any other witnesses on the matter. And then following the city's presentation, we will hear testimony from the applicant and those that wish to speak in favor of the request. At the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, we'll hear testimony from anyone who wishes to speak in opposition or has questions or concerns. Following conclusion of the hearing this afternoon, I will take the matter under advisement and will issue a written decision, and that decision will be transmitted to the city and the applicant at the addresses shown on the front page of the staff report. And if you need a decision mailed elsewhere, just let staff know before we conclude the hearing. At this time then, I would just like to mention to everyone that this is a quasi-judicial hearing. We must take all testimony under oath. And so prior to your commencing your testimony, I will swear you in as a witness, and until you're called on to testify, just leave yourself muted. And then when we call on you or when it's your turn, you can then unmute yourself and present your testimony. So Ms. Mahoney, do you want to raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case amount hearing shall be the truth?
I swear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. We're here this afternoon for your consideration and decision on the requested land use permits for the Canterwood Commercial Center. This project is captured in permit numbers PLSPR 070004, PLCUP 13-0002, and PLDRB 07-0013. The applicant proposes to construct 4 commercial buildings, that's buildings A through D, totaling 28,278 square feet in the city's B2 General Business Zoning District. A 9,000 square foot parking garage is proposed to be located beneath building A. The site is 7.6 acres. It's located on the west side of Canterwood Boulevard, bordered on the west and the south by State Route 16. It's bordered on the east by St. Anthony's Hospital in the C1 zone, and on the north by a vacant parcel in the city's medium density or R2 zone. The site contains slopes as steep as 70%. It contains 7 Category 4 wetlands and 1 unnamed. 2 of the wetlands are proposed to be filled by the applicant. This loss of critical area is being mitigated through the creation of 1 on-site wetland located west and downhill of building A at 1.5 times the size of the filled critical areas. The applicant's also proposing mitigation by way of removing an existing culvert in the type 3 stream. An in-depth critical area analysis, including that of the city's third-party environmental consultant, is included in the mitigated determination of non-significance issued by the city on July 1st, 2021. And that MD&S is included with the staff report as Exhibit L. In short, the environmental impacts of the proposed commercial center have been sufficiently mitigated, provided that the examiner imposed staff's recommended conditions outlined in section 11 of the staff report. Namely, in the matter of critical area management, staff recommends the imposition of condition number 7 in the examiner's decision, which adopts the mitigation measures, requirements, and conditions of the MD&S issued for the proposed activity. The environmental impacts and mitigation are detailed in more depth in section 9 of the staff report and in exhibit L to the staff report. The applicant proposes a number of land uses throughout buildings A through D. Building A is proposed to serve a professional services use. Buildings B and C are proposed to serve restaurant uses, and building D is intended to serve both restaurant and retail uses. Buildings B, C, and D each propose to incorporate a drive-through in the buildings designed to serve the intended restaurants at each building. Drive-throughs in Gig Harbor's B2 zone require a conditional use permit to be issued by the hearing examiner. A written statement of justification for the requested conditional use permit has been prepared by the applicant and is included in Exhibit C to the staff report. Staff has also included the applicant's site plan, elevations, renderings, and architectural details collectively as Exhibit B to the staff report. This project's application, public meetings, SEPA threshold determination, and this hearing were all appropriately noticed. One comment was submitted to staff by the Department of Ecology in response to the mitigated determination of non-significance. This comment is included as Exhibit E to the staff report and outlines Ecology's requirements of the applicant relative to water quality, solid waste management, and toxic cleanup. These comments were transmitted to the applicant by staff, and adherence to Ecology's comments as applicable has been recommended as a condition to the examiner's decision. Please reference condition 6 in section 11 of the staff report. Staff also received one timely submitted comment this morning in response to the notice of public hearing for this project. An addendum dated September 2nd, 2021 was prepared by staff and transmitted to the hearing examiner's office in advance of this hearing, which included the public comment and a response to the public comment prepared by staff. Concerns introduced in the comment were related to the transportation impacts of the proposed development, and the Gig Harbor Engineering Division's response to each concern was included in green text in the aforementioned addendum. The response prepared by the Engineering Division was transmitted to the commenter, who acknowledged receipt of the response and gratitude for its detail. Staff requests the examiner include the collective addendum, public comment, and staff response as Exhibit M to the staff report. The discussion included in this comment bears no impact on staff's conclusions or recommendations contained in the August 26, 2021 staff report. This project has a long permitting history with Gig Harbor, having gone through many years of languish, revitalization, and required redesigns. The applicant has proposed an alternative design and design exception in its design review permit application. These proposals have been considered by the Design Review Board at 6 meetings held intermittently between 2014 and 2021. Having considered the criteria to recommend approval of these proposals, the DRB has issued 3 recommendations of approval for the applicant's design alternatives and exceptions. These recommendations are collectively included as Exhibit D to the staff report. Staff's analysis of the applicant's requested permits is described in detail in section 9 of the staff report. The proposed development is compatible with surrounding development and has been designed consistent with all performance criteria, parking requirements, setbacks, landscaping, surface coverage, critical area management, and gross floor area standards required of the site's B2 zoning district. As such, the Canterwood Commercial Center has met the approval criteria of its requested site plan permit. The proposal is also exhibited conformance with the 4 approval criteria of a conditional use permit. Staff has carefully reviewed the proposal and offered findings that the drive-throughs proposed for buildings B, C, and D are specified by Title 17 as being conditionally permitted in the site's B2 zone. The drive-throughs will not be detrimental to public health, safety, comfort, convenience, or welfare. They are adequately served by transportation, public facilities, and street capacities without creating an undue burden. And they are served by a site of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed use. Staff's recommended conditions intend to ensure the applicant's continued adherence to these criteria of approval. If appropriately conditioned, the applicant has satisfied the conditional use permit criteria for approval. Lastly, over the course of the project's review, the applicant proposed several design alternatives and 1 design exception, all of which were considered by the Design Review Board. The DRB recommended approval of these requests subject to provisional language included in their recommendations. Staff has reviewed the applicant's proposed design against the provisional language offered by the DRB and has confirmed that the conditions have been satisfied by the applicant. Exhibits I, J, and K demonstrate the detail conditioned by the DRB in their recommendations. Staff has thoroughly reviewed the applicant's design and finds the requested design alternatives and design exception are consistent with the DRB's recommendations, and otherwise finds that the applicant's design to conform administratively with the applicable provisions of the city's design manual. As such, the applicant has met the approval criteria for its requested design review permit. Based on the analysis contained in the staff report, staff recommends the examiner approve each of the applicant's requested permits and also recommends the examiner impose the conditions of approval recommended by staff. This concludes my introduction of the Canterwood Commercial Center proposed development. I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Mahoney. So as I understand it, then the conditional use permit is only for the drive-through facility. It's not for the entire project.
That's correct, Mr. Examiner.
But the site plan review and the design review, those are for the full project.
Correct.
Okay. I just had one question. I was looking at I guess it's on page 11 of your staff report, and it's talking about the number of parking stalls that are required for the buildings. And I noticed that it says that the drive-through would require, well, that the drive-through would have 2 assigned employees, and so that would necessitate, I believe, 1 additional parking stall for the employees of the drive-through, if I'm reading that correctly. The other thing I didn't notice, though, was whether or not there are required parking stalls for other employees of the restaurant or the business. So I just wondered, do the other parking require, they're all based on seats for the patrons, but and they're kind of calculated, okay, if there's this many seats, then we have to have this many parking stalls. But I don't see any calculation for, say, waitresses or, wait staff, the cooks, the bus boys, whatever. I don't see, anything like that. So I'm wondering, is that something that the code addresses, or is that considered as part of the seating, the seating calculation, the parking stalls based on the seating calculation?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Examiner. You're correct in your understanding of the parking requirements, that it is based on seating. I suppose to your last point, it could be that the routine calculation of 1 stall for every 3 seats kind of inherently considers the staff of the building, but I wouldn't swear by it. I don't know that to be absolutely certain. It's just the only opportunity wherein that might be taken into consideration as far as parking for restaurant staff goes, because you are correct that as far as the drive-through goes, from a staffing perspective, the parking that's required is limited to those staff that are dedicated to the drive-through. And so holistically, a restaurant's wait staff and cooks and things of that nature are not considered in our parking requirements.
Okay, thank you. Does the city have anything further it wishes to present at this time?
No, thank you, Mr. Examiner.
Okay, then we'll hear testimony then from the applicant and those that wish to speak in favor of the request. Okay, Mr. Halson, do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now on hearing shall be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. For the record, Carl Halson, agent for the applicants today, the Sweet Hill LLC, and I just make a matter of record that I was not the agent for the applicants when they first began this process 15 years ago. They brought me on board a little under 2 years ago, last fall of 2019, to help push this project across the finish line. I did go back to the oldest versions of the city files I could find to find out that the original submittal date for this was in December of 2005. So it's been going on a long time. I can't speak to all the reasons why it languished, but here we are now. And then also wanted to acknowledge Ms. Mahoney's help on this project. She too was pretty new to it a couple of years ago too. So between the two of us, we spent many hours digging through old files, trying to figure out where it was and where it was going. So glad we're here today. As staff report described it, the project is really, it's split in two, north to south, across a big ravine wetland area. To the north is a multi-story office building with its entrance right across from the hospital's northern entrance. That building will also have some underground parking stalls. And then to the south is the 3 single-story buildings that will have restaurant drive-through uses and other mixed retail uses, tenants to be determined. That entrance is also across the street from a hospital entrance. That one is the southern entrance to the hospital, with another, not a limited movement drive-through in between those two. With regard to the staff report, I don't have any conditions or concerns with how the project was described. I tend to agree with Ms. Mahoney that the minimum number of parking stalls probably was captured in the 3, 1 stall per 3 seats. The number of employees must have been. Other jurisdictions seem to do it the same way. Others do it by square footage. And then with regard to the conditions of approval listed at the end of the staff report, we don't have any issues or concern with those conditions of approval and meeting those. Those all are come right out of what's taken place in the last couple of years, and the approval memos and whatnot. I did want to speak to the comments that came in this morning at 9:59 a.m. to the city, and they all were about there were traffic comments, and I just wanted to make sure for the record that it's noted that the traffic is dealt with in Gig Harbor as through the SEPA process. The environmental determination was issued in early July. There were no comments, no appeals filed on that, and that process is closed. However, I guess I did want to speak to some of the issues that were raised and make sure the examiner was clear on that. And I spent this morning looking through Greg Heath's traffic study from January 25th of 2021. That's the most recent version. And I think it's interesting because this project was doing in its final throes during the COVID shutdown. And if you look at the bottom of page 6 of the traffic report, in terms of existing peak hour volumes, what they did, both Heath and the City Public Works Department, was they agreed to do specific traffic counts at the hospital entrances, but then to use 2017 traffic counts for the roundabouts, because traffic was generally down during the COVID shutdown times. And so they didn't want to get an inaccurate picture of existing baseline traffic. So they took the 2017 counts. They then added a 1% growth factor for those to come up with a baseline traffic for 2021. And it's interesting to note that the 1% is actually a higher rate than is listed in the city's transportation plan. So this is a conservative estimate of existing peak hour trips. If you look at the projected trip generation on page 9 of the traffic study, they estimate there's going to be 139 new trips in the PM peak hour between 4 and 6 p.m. Finally, I want to talk about the city's level of service standard. The city has adopted level of service D for concurrency, and with or without this project, all the intersection study, those are the 2 hospital entrances and both roundabouts, will continue to operate at level of service D or better. And finally, in terms of mitigation, at current traffic impact fee estimates, this project would pay in over $700,000 into the city's traffic impact fee fund, to be those dollars to be used where the city sees fit for traffic projects around town. Jason Hubble is here on the call today with me from Barghausen Engineering. He's been on the project a bit longer than I have. Mr. Examiner, do you have any questions about engineering the storm, things like that. Mr. Hubble will be better to answer those, but that's all I have for my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Halson. Does anyone else wish to speak on behalf of the applicant? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak in opposition or has questions or concerns regarding the project? Ms. Mahoney, do you have anything further?
I should only verify that you did receive the addendum that was prepared and transmitted to your office.
Yes, I did. I received it, and I've had a chance to read both the city's response and then the commenters' points. And I appreciate your getting that over to me very timely and responding very timely to the commenter. And so, yes, I have, I've marked them as the package there as Exhibit M. So
Okay.
that would be part of the record.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Examiner.
I don't think I have any questions for Mr. Hubble or Mr. Halson. And so does anyone else have anything they wish to present before we close the record on this matter?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it seems like I kind of, was this project originally in Pierce County, Mr. Halson, or was it, did it start in Pierce County or was it always with the city?
Always with the city.
Okay.
It's one of the older ones I've worked on, that's for sure.
It is the oldest one.
I just remember a lot of Canterwood things
Right.
in the county, and I didn't know if this was, was kind of one that was in the county that originally started that way. So at any rate, okay. Well, thank you very much then, and we are now adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.